Hello again and welcome to what is now episode number 15 in A Year Gardening, following my exploits in the garden through the year of 2020. It's really hard to believe that it's just 4 months today when I was sitting filming the very first episode, and I think we've come quite a long way in these last 4 months. As you can see, the clematis is looking absolutely gorgeous at the moment, and I've been busy tidying the garden, making the flowers look their very, very best. I've also been working very, very hard in the courtyard garden, painting the fences, preparing the brackets, getting the baskets up. And today I'm going to show you the installation of some solar lighting there. I've also got some mulching to do on the rose garden. Need to earth up my potatoes, loads and loads of bits and pieces to do. So I'm going to start today just by showing you the installation of the solar lights in the courtyard garden. Hello and welcome back to the courtyard garden. Now we've finished all the fences, and I've touched up some of the bits that hadn't gone too well, and they're looking quite nice now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm fixing some solar lights onto the panels in order to just give a little bit of evening light. What I did do is I took a small piece of timber, and where the screws are on the back of the light, I measured that off and made centre marks. I then marked that on the wall, and I pre-drilled some small holes to take the screws. So I'm just going to pop those screws into the wall now, and we will then be able to put the light straight up. Put that in, and I'll just leave a couple of millimetres to allow the light to fix onto it. So we'll pop that there, and then this should, in theory, pop straight on. Nice and firm, lovely, and that's nicely in place. All I've got to do is another one onto the back of the summer house and another one on the other fence, and we'll have 3 lights up. Well, I've now re-sited the kitchen composter down by the vegetable garden, and I'm going to start the composter back off with some fairly well rotted material, so it will actually start the process all over again. So I'm just going to shovel some of that out of the barrow into here now. Oh, it's all hard work. Well, okay, here we go. So this is looking quite good, but we've got to get this down inside, ready to help start off the activation of the next lot. There's a load of worms and bugs and bits and pieces in here already, so we'll really have some nice bugs to start everything off. Don't really want that bit of rose in there. So the job as it stands at the moment, everything is looking quite reasonable. Not perfect, but it's getting there. We've got the new bed down here with the courgettes and the cucumbers in. And as we go around, there's the light that we've just fitted there. There's another small bed down the bottom in the corner, and that is going to take some more climbing plants. Another light behind the hanging basket on there. Got a screen fence that I've put up here, and another light on the back of the summer house. So it's gradually taking shape nicely. I've got a delivery coming next week of the sand and cement to finish this area off and get that looking all nice, and then I'm just going to get some astroturf to go down onto the existing concrete, and this will be near enough completed. All I need to do then is just get my pots and planters out, and this will be a rather different area to the one that it was just a couple of weeks ago. Well, as you can see, a lot of work has taken place in the courtyard garden and moving the composter to the new area. I'd now like you to just have a quick look at the front garden, the area that I redesigned, and show you how the wildflowers are growing there. Well, I thought I'd just show you how well the wildflowers and the country garden flowers are growing into the little borders that we put into the centre of the grass here. They're really looking very, very strong, and I'm really hoping that we get some lovely colour. I notice we've got a few lupins in there as well, which will be a bit of height. So here's looking for another month or so's time when these are grown and in flower. Well, I hope you agree with me that that's looking rather splendid, and given another couple of months' time we're going to have plenty of flowers growing. I'm now going to be just adding some compost mulch onto the rose garden, so let's go and have a look at that. Well, I've been waiting quite a time to get enough fertiliser and compost to actually mulch this area in properly. I've managed to get hold of a reasonable amount now, so I'm just going to start to cover all of this area with some compost enriched with some fertiliser. Help the plants through these next few weeks, give them a bit of encouragement to grow, so I'm going to start on that now. Generally, I'm just going to give it about an inch. Well, apart from looking much better, that's really going to assist with the growth of the plants, and I'm looking forward to seeing the benefits of that. The roses are starting to come into bud now, and the peony also is in bud there, so this should end up looking like a rather nice little border. Well, another little job that I've got to do is to earth up the new potatoes. They're coming through really, really nicely now, so it's time to get a little bit of a lift of the soil over those. So let's go and do that now. Well, these potatoes are coming through quite nicely now. They've got a reasonable bit of growth on them. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to earth those up a little bit with the soil here, and then I'll bring some compost down and build that up. So I'll start furthest away from me so I can see where I'm standing on here. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift the soil and start to cover the growth on these, because we don't want the potatoes that come through underneath to go green by getting contact with the air, because a green potato is a poisonous potato and will not do you much good if you eat it. We're just going to keep these earthed up over the next few months while they grow under the ground. Hopefully we'll have a lovely crop of Maris pipers coming out of here. same from the other side. Well, that's the first 2 rows of the Norris Pipers earthed up for the first time. Hopefully we'll get a really nice crop of potatoes from these and enjoy eating them later. Well, that's great. The potatoes are earthed up. And that's another job I won't have to look at for a couple of weeks. Now I've just popped back into the conservatory because I've been and got half a dozen of these plastic pots to go into the new courtyard garden, and I'm going to be sowing some seeds into these. However, none of them have any drainage in the bottom, so what I need to do is just take my drill and put a few holes in the bottom. So I've just grabbed myself a drill bit here. We'll load that into the drill, and I'm just going to make 4 holes into the bottom. Nice slow drill so it doesn't break the plastic, and we'll be able to then put some stones and some bits and pieces into the bottom, because also, being as they're plastic, they're very, very light, which does mean that they're liable to blow over if we have any tall plants in them. So there we have just 4 small holes put into the bottom, and I'm going to take this outside now, pop some stones, maybe a third of the way up the pot, so that we've got a nice weight in the bottom before I add my compost. Well, this pot is now just over a third full with some stones and broken concrete and bits of pot and things, and I've topped it up to about 2 inches from the top with compost. I've also added some fertiliser pellets to that, which is going to give it some feed. It's a slow release and it will feed over the next 3 to 4 months without me having to worry about feeding any plants that are in there. Now I've just given this a fairly good water because there's a lot of compost in there. There's a good 300 millimetres of compost sitting in there, so I want that water to drain down inside. So I'm going to give that 15 minutes, half hour just to drain through, and then I'm going to sow some seeds in there, and I'll show you that in just a second. Right, so I'm ready to plant out the seeds now. There is something I should share with you. If you're going to be using a slow release fertiliser, slow release plant food in your hanging baskets, in your pots, in your containers, you should always pre-mix the specified amount with the compost before you put it into your pots. So in this one here, I've probably got about twice the amount of compost that I would have in a 12-inch hanging basket, and a 12-inch hanging basket is the key that I use to measure everything out by, because I know that 30 grams of slow release plant food is right for a 12-inch 30 centimetre hanging basket. Now the one that I've got is Growshaw all-purpose 6-month feed. That's already now mixed in here. You should never exceed the recommended dose. You see it on your tablets. It's exactly the same with your plant food. You can overfeed and therefore harm your plants. What I've got here is I've now got my pot with my compost. I now need to add my seeds. I'm going to start with the largest seeds. Now this is a bargain. These packs here of orange nasturtiums are a kid's pack of seeds for planting a fairy garden. Fantastic. It actually comes with the seeds and the plant markers in the pot. So if you're looking for a little project with the children while you're in lockdown, growing some nasturtiums is a great thing because the leaves and the flowers are edible. You can use them in your salads. Really, really tasty. And it's great fun for the kids to grow. These for a pack was 29p in the local home bargains. Now that is a bargain. I bought quite a few packs. Now I'm going to plop some nasturtiums in here. I won't need a whole pack in here because the size that the plants grow to, so I'm just going to trim the pack off here. And they are a nice large seed, and I've got 18 seeds in here. So if I just take a few and pop round the edges of here. Now, because there is feed in the compost, I'm not going to be putting these seeds in very deep at all. I'm just going to pop them onto the surface. And what I will be doing then is I'll be putting a thin layer more of compost over the top without any feed in it. So that is some nasturtiums in there. I'll just take these seeds, put back over the side here. What I also have is I have some calendula seeds. These are a pot marigold. And so I'm going to be keeping the colour theme for this particular pot very, very similar. And again, I don't want to overdo this. I'm just going to put a few in between those nasturtium seeds. And a great thing again, the calendula seed is a fairly large seed, so you can spread that about. One more seed that I intend to put in here, if I can find it, is a much smaller seed. And there it is. We'll just open that up. And this is probably one of my favourite wild stroke self-seeding flowers. It's Nigella, also known as Love in a Mist. Absolutely beautiful plant. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop in around about half a dozen of those into this pot, and I'm just going to sprinkle those randomly around. Half a dozen. I've probably got about 15 here, but they're beautiful. And they will give a lovely cloudy edge to what will be a flower arrangement in here. So I've got my seeds in there. I'm going to then just take a small amount of compost and sprinkle that over the top of those seeds. Probably no more than a centimetre. That's going to be ample. Pop that on there, and just a little bit over in the other corner here. Now, you know me, a pot is not going to be complete without a label. As I've got half a dozen of these pots, I want to make sure that I know which planting I have in which pot. So we'll grab a label from in here. Hopefully my pencil's up there. It is indeed. And I'm going to mark this out, nasturtium, plus calendula, plus Nigella, and pop that into the back. So later on today, in about an hour or so's time, I will just come back to this and I will give a misting to the top. Now, the compost has already sunk in here, where the water that I put on it earlier has just drawn it down. So I've still got a good 2 inches clear around the top, which I like. It allows me to let the plants grow through, and if I've got anything too thick, I can still thin them, and then I can just build that compost up a little bit as it sinks. So I'm happy with that one. I've now got another 5 pots to put out, and they're all going to be based with the nasturtiums, but with a variation of the plants that go with them. And they're going to look fine up in that courtyard garden. Now, what else is it I've got to do? Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little trip through this week with me. Done quite a lot, and I'm so pleased with the way the courtyard garden is taking shape at last. Looking out through the glass here of the greenhouse, the rose garden is really filling out beautifully. I'm so pleased with the clematis. Both the clematis, my purple and the white, are really looking lovely. The honeysuckle, the scent, when I walk down here first thing in the morning, I come down here about 5 o'clock most mornings, The scent is absolutely gorgeous. Now I must reply to one comment, and I will be very kind and not mention your name. No, I don't have a bucket of chicken in the greenhouse. It's just another one of these plastic pots that I've used, drilled a few holes in the bottom to grow some other things in. Honestly, it's peas that are growing in there, and they're coming on quite nicely, and a couple of weeks' time they'll be going out into the garden. There's always a use for our plastic containers before we have to recycle them, and that's another use for a chicken bucket. Anyway, what have we achieved today? Well, so the work we've done in the courtyard garden, we've got some mulch down onto the rose garden. I've shown you the wildflowers that are growing in the front garden borders. Earthed up the potatoes and planted out some seeds for going into the courtyard garden in their containers. Loads done, still loads to do. And hopefully by the time I start putting the next video together, I will have the sand and cement here to be laying out that courtyard garden properly. It might even have the artificial grass here so we get a nice finish out there. Hopefully also the weather will have picked up. These last couple of days have been quite chilly, and I have actually been fleecing a couple of my plants overnight. Hasn't actually come to a frost where I am, so very, very lucky. So next time out there will be loads more to do, and hopefully we'll see some more plants going through. So it just leaves me to say thank you very much once again for being with me and allowing me into your lives for a few more minutes. It's always a pleasure, and today I'm going to say goodbye with a rather pleasant Shiraz. Reading the articles about this wine, it says it's a lovely wine with steak. I've found through the last couple of takes, because unfortunately I couldn't get this done first take. I've had to do 2 or 3 takes, and I must say that I think this wine goes very well with wine. Stay safe, take care, see you again soon. Cheers.